Okay, so I've been on a DreamWorks movie marathon, and I gotta say, it's killing me. Don't get it twisted, I've been enjoying a lot of the films, but the bad movies were really hard to sit through. We're gonna be doing this in two parts, so if I don't get to one of your favorites in this one, it'll be there in a second. There are a couple movies I chose not to watch for a multitude of reasons, but nothing that should bother you. So they'll be a part of that haven't watched yet section of the tier list. Those movies are Trolls World Tour and The Boss Baby Family Business. I'm sure these movies were fine, but I'll dive into why when I discuss the first Boss Baby and Trolls. Also, I'll be doing some drawings of the characters alongside my discussion of these films just to shake things up. Make sure you like and subscribe if you're new, and after this video, check out my last video about Disney failing Pixar as of late. I really love that video and would love for more of you all to see it. With that out of the way, let's do this.
You might think you know, but you have no idea.
So, beginning with Shark Tale. Yeah, one thing I will never understand is my middle school teacher's obsession with showing this movie to my class. I mean, every year, 6th, 7th, 8th, it don't matter. They all played Shark Tale. Why? As an aspiring animator, I hate to talk poorly of animated movies, but it's so bad, man. It's ridiculous. I think I'm just tired of characters that do the dumbest things to characters that care so much about them. Oscar was annoying. His only redeeming quality was that he was voiced by the GOAT.
Ah! Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
Look, I know it's an old meme, but I'm a new YouTuber, okay? Look, I nearly turned this movie off like 5 different times, especially whenever Lola showed up on my screen. Like, did she really matter to the story? Like, I understand she told the Don that Oscar killed his son, but how did the Don not know it was Oscar when his face was plastered all over the place? This movie was filled with stereotypes, and the story didn't feel clear at all until Frankie died. And the movie just wasn't really all that funny. The only redeeming part of the film for me was Lenny's storyline with the Don. Although Frankie's death was very Phase 4 MCU, where it was more comedic than sad. I enjoyed some things, like when the Don went after Oscar at the end of the film. It was actually pretty exciting. Apparently people were calling this a Nemo copy, but I don't know, maybe because of the proximity of time in which it was released, but I wouldn't say it was much of a copy. Sure, it's underwater, but that's about all the similarities I saw. I guess the moral of the story is supposed to be about greed and how obsession for power can cloud your morals. I guess I liked the ending. I thought it was nice seeing the resolution between Lenny and his pops. I guess it was nice to see Angie forgive Oscar, but ultimately, I'm just glad I ain't gotta watch this anymore. Shark Tale, you're going to F tier.
Don't think of this as a prison. Think of it as a hotel you never leave because it's locked from the outside.
So this was one of those films I actually never saw as a kid. I started out with the TV show, which I believe was either on Nickelodeon or Nicktoons. So some of that nostalgia carried over from the show to when I watched the film this week. But unfortunately, that nostalgia didn't help much. When I was watching this movie, it didn't feel like a movie, you know? It more so felt like a long TV special. There were some funny moments.
Don't rush me, Katie. I'm just not ready.
Like, why did he push her like that? I wasn't a big fan of the character designs either. In fact, it was one of the reasons why this felt more like a TV show than a film to me. Susan's design was great though. She was probably the only interesting character in the movie. Like, the supporting characters were fine, but I felt no connection to them. Like, I was low-key happy when the big bug died. The only other great character was the president. Like, how can you not respect this? Inspirational. The villain was boring, and so was the final fight scene. Just a lot of grabbing and laser beams. And that sums up most of the fights, honestly. Oh, can't forget Susan's boyfriend, you know. He was selfish, but I guess I can't blame him to an extent. Look, it's not a bad movie, but not something I'd watch again. Monsters vs. Aliens, in my humble opinion, you deserve a C tier.
Unbelievable, guys. Really, really great. Good job. I could hear you from a mile away.
Good. I was worried we weren't projecting enough.
Trolls is a bit out of my range, honestly. By this point I was maybe 15, and from what I can remember, I didn't have much interest in what I was seeing from the commercials. With all the DreamWorks movies I've watched for this video, I had no idea Trolls would be the movie that made me realize just how many pop culture songs they use in their films. I think they had one original song, and luckily they can sing. The characters were okay, the trolls are way too nice for me though. Branch sort of balanced things out, but dude was just a downer. I needed that middle ground, you know? The story was pretty good. It was interesting seeing why the trolls were on the run. It made the Bergens that much more terrifying considering the sheer size of those things compared to the trolls. I thought the world was well thought out. The environments were beautiful and vibrant. The animation was really good, which isn't a surprise as it came out in 2016, but I just love that teddy bear-like texture the characters have. It had a very distinct look that I at least don't often see. Only thing is, and it might just be that I'm 21, but the film was just not for me. I didn't think it was bad, I just couldn't engage with it fully. This is what ultimately led to me not wanting to watch Trolls World Tour. I just had no interest in it, so my 21-year-old tier level for Trolls is tier C.
Your driver is a snail?
I remember seeing this film when I was like 13 at my grandma's house on demand. I really liked this film when I first saw it. I was young, so I was definitely the target audience, but it was just a really cool concept to have this juiced up snail racing amongst the real racers living up to his dreams. I enjoyed all the characters, and as I mentioned, I thought it was a really cool concept, but I would be lying if I said the story was amazing. I won't say this movie is bad because it's not, but I don't think I could put it up there with my A or B movies. So since Turbo has a special place in my heart, I'll place it in C tier.
What the thorax?
Are you crazy?
What? I just wanted a longer car chase. It's the best part.
Okay, how many of you found out about this movie on Twitter? I remember randomly scrolling on Twitter one day when I saw this.
Stop!
I'll stop if you just explain it to me because I don't...
Would you please just drop it?
All right, fine. Consider it dropped. It's dropped. It's on the ground.
Good.
But I mean, come on, everybody loves birthdays. You got decorations, you got balloons, you got parties, and cake.
Look, I don't need presents. I don't want decorations, and I'm not a cake guy.
Seriously, though, you don't like cake? Name one food better than cake.
Guinea pig?
Oh, again, with the guinea pig.
Like if you're gonna pay homage to Pulp Fiction, that's how you do it. The problem is that when I saw this film, that was pretty much the only scene I really liked. Keyword, really. I still liked other scenes, but this movie as a whole was kind of bland for me. It was beautiful, of course, the art style was gorgeous. I liked that they gave the bad guys the opportunity to be good guys. Of course, this isn't nearly the first time DreamWorks has produced a plot like this, but I still found it enjoyable. They struggled making that shift, and characters like Wolf were cool because he especially was falling in love with the idea of being a good guy. There were some predictable moments, especially between the Wolf and Diane, but predictable can be good sometimes. What I loved was how the bad guys rewrote their own path, and it was nice to see them rekindle their friendship with Snake. I did not like the villain. He was kind of like a Disney surprise villain, which is actually funny coming from DreamWorks. I think overall it was a pretty good movie. I'd put it at a B, like a B-, close to a C+. The animation definitely carries it for me.
Oh yeah? Well, if I treated you so bad, how come you came back?
Because that's what friends do! They forgive each other!
Man, y'all already know this is an S. Now look, I get it. Some would argue this isn't even the best movie in the franchise, and granted, I may completely backtrack on this at a later date, but guys, come on, this is Shrek. You get that magical OST for the first time, and then...
Oh, look at
Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me. I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed.
Just magical. I couldn't believe how much I was smiling while rewatching this movie. This was the timeline where DreamWorks felt purely magical. But what's there to say? The music, the comedy, the characters? DreamWorks struck gold with this. The story was simple but amazing. You couldn't choose for better characters to follow. Also, the memes. Like, it's hilarious how a random action could turn into one of the most popular memes on the internet. Well, the love story between Shrek and Fiona is so genuine. And the final moment where Fiona questions her beauty and Shrek tells her she is beautiful, it truly warms your heart. This is an excellent film, a classic film that will never be forgotten.
Oh, you are bad at math.
Excuse me? I got an A in geometry.
I am only saying Boov are superior in this way.
Yeah, I didn't like it. Now, of course, I barely watched it. This was one of those films my teacher played in our physics class in high school. Like, high school, really? Well, at least it wasn't Shark Tale. I tried rewatching this movie to freshen up my memory, but man, O's voice is annoying, and that's coming from me. Look, I'm not the kind of guy to say animation is for children, but like I said earlier, some things are definitely and specifically targeted towards children, which is good. But I gotta give Home D tier. Beautiful animation though.
Jack Frost.
That's right! But that's me! Jack Frost! That's my name! You said my name!
I love this film. Let me tell you, I've always felt like this was one of the most slept on DreamWorks movies ever made. First of all, the DreamWorks intro for this film alone is S tier. But I swear, from beginning to end, you truly feel the magic. I love how the moon is like this almighty power in their universe, and the characters themselves are so interesting. Santa and the Easter Bunny are my least favorite. I don't know where this War Santa trend came from. Well, actually, maybe it came from this, but I still find them enjoyable. Jack Frost's story is always so sad whenever I see it. His dynamic with Pitch is so intriguing as they are two characters wanting not to be forgotten. The other characters relate to that as the film progresses, but Pitch and Jack have to deal with the pressures of also being hated. Granted, I don't think Pitch minds. The art style looks incredible. DreamWorks has some incredible animation software. One thing's for sure, I don't think I've ever watched an ugly DreamWorks movie, including their earlier work. Supporting characters like Sandman and the Tooth Fairy, along with the kids, were all entertaining. Back to Jack though. When he found his memories, it just made me love the character even more. This is definitely one of those movies I want to make a deeper dive into in the future. Even as a kid I wanted a sequel, but it's smart they never went that route. It's a classic that is yet to be tarnished by the sequel curse. You guys may want to rank this lower, but I'm gonna have to give this movie an A. I so badly want to make this an S tier, but I'm gonna check my biases and my nostalgia at least a bit.
You're supposed to say I have the right to remain silent. Nobody said I have the right to remain silent.
Donkey, you have the right to remain silent. What you lack is the capacity.
As you've probably heard, this is one of the greatest sequels ever made. Frankly, DreamWorks may be the king of sequels, honestly. This movie expanded on everything the first Shrek had to offer, and may very well be the better film. It's crazy how much the animation quality improved. Like seriously, DreamWorks has some of the best hair physics. Oh, how could I forget? This time around I caught the Ariel Easter egg. I didn't notice it on my first watch, but I thought that was pretty funny. The story started with Shrek just wanting to live peacefully with Fiona, but just like in the first film, he's forced to travel to places he isn't too comfortable in. I mean, my guy just wants to chill in his swamp. We got the introduction to Puss in Boots, and also the birth of this.
Shrek? Oh, come on, Donkey, look at him.
And once they finally take the potion, the story takes the best turn. For some reason, Shrek turning human just didn't feel real. Like, I know I saw this when I was a kid, maybe not, I don't know, I was like 3, but I for some reason just deleted it from my memory. The comedy gets even better, and man, the cop scene...
Police brutality! Police brutality! Come on! I have to talk to Princess Fiona! I warned you! Ow!
Will they get away with it? Or did someone let the cat out of the bag?
You capitalist! Be done!
Oh! Get it off! Oh!
Catnip. That's no mine.
This movie had me laughing non-stop. I will say, Donkey was kinda annoying earlier in the film, but not nearly as bad in the later half. The fairy godmother was a great villain, and a great setup to the villain for the next film. I admit the I'm an ogre thing Shrek does can be annoying, like bro, we get it. And it especially gets bad with the last 2 movies, but here it works because he was down on himself. But also, everyone around him was telling him that if he wasn't an ogre, it would be better for Fiona. So at the end, when Shrek and Fiona chose to be ogres again, it was beautiful and perfectly captures that magic that only these Shrek films have. Shrek 2 is an easy S tier for me.
How would you like to have a baby brother?
No thanks. I'm enough.
Unlike most people, I genuinely found Boss Baby funny. I just love this story of an older brother having to accept his life changing as he gained a new brother. It's certainly not perfect, and there's not much to this movie that makes me want to speak on it for too long, but it was enjoyable enough for me to say it wasn't bad. The problem is that it still isn't good. I treat this film like I treat Jaws. I know, weird comparison, but a few days ago I watched the movie Meg, and Meg was not very good. Now, I don't know how connected these movies are, if they are at all, but it made me not want anything to do with Jaws. It's petty, I know, but it's the reason I don't want to watch the Boss Baby Family Business. It could possibly be a better film, but unfortunately, I don't care enough to know. Anyways, the Boss Baby goes D tier.
What are you doing here, senor? Did you lose your ball of yarn?
So funny.
I saw Puss in Boots a couple times growing up. I never paid too much attention to it because I sort of treated Puss like a regular sidekick to Shrek. Rewatching it now though, I couldn't have been more wrong. I love everything about this movie. Puss is the perfect lead. Charming, funny, and he can fight. Just perfect, man. Like, it was a fun adventure where Puss had to reunite with an old frenemy, Humpty Dumpty, as they searched for the magic beans, while also finding new friends along the way, giving us Kitty Softpaws. I love the twist on popular folktale characters like Jack and Jill. Although I don't remember those stories as much, I can tell DreamWorks added their own flair to each character in the movie, and it was some great changes. I never got bored. You could argue that Humpty was a cliche twist villain, but you could tell he was hiding something the entire time. At one point in the story before they revealed the betrayal, you even saw Kitty tell Puss to run away. DreamWorks has always been able to make their films magical. They have a magic to their work that is so strangely unique to them, that I think has helped them rival studios like Disney for a long time. With that being said, Puss in Boots goes to A tier.
Door lock activated.
Wow, that's an expensive door.
It was a choice between the magnetic automatic door closer and the music and arts programs.
So we'll get through this one pretty quickly, as this was one of those movies I almost skipped entirely. Again, DreamWorks doesn't miss when it comes to animation quality. This film is beautiful. Every shot is so beautifully detailed. The style is so unique, and I love how they don't venture too far off from the source material. I wouldn't say I'm a Captain Underpants fanatic, but I used to read a lot of those books at the library when I was a kid. So there's a bit of love from that plays a factor in my enjoyment of the film. I wasn't the biggest fan of the voice acting for the kids, like, it wasn't terrible, and honestly, I don't know how to feel about celebrity voice actors. Like, Kevin Hart has a very distinct voice, but he's not a traditional voice actor, you know? This isn't a DreamWorks problem, this is a major studio problem all across Hollywood, honestly. Anyways, I didn't care too much about the story, but it was a nice, heartwarming story about two kids that just wanted to have fun and be themselves while their principal wanted to separate them. As they realized how their flaws complement one another, their bond grew, and they were great characters to follow. The scenes with Captain Underpants were fun. I could definitely say I was never bored in those moments. Overall, not a bad film, but I think I wouldn't mind placing this in C tier. It may have been better than Monsters vs. Aliens and Trolls, so I'll put it there.
So then I was all like, I'd rather get the Black Plague and lock myself in an Iron Maiden than go out with you.
Totally.
Pardon me.
Ugh, totally ooh.
Yeah, totally.
Boy, this movie here. I don't know where to start. As usual, this film was very funny. It followed Shrek wanting to find the rightful heir to the throne as he wanted nothing to do with the role. I don't want to sound like an insane person, but King Harold's death was still hilarious even as an adult, and it was nice hearing this banger again.
When you were young and your heart was an open book.
This would be the moment Shrek, Donkey, and Puss set off to find Arthur when Fiona tells Shrek she's pregnant. I like the parental role Shrek had to play with Arthur in order to prepare himself for fatherhood with his own children. Although you could probably argue Shrek has had plenty of training with Donkey. Anyways, it was cool to see the other princesses in this film. They were all funny in their own right, and seriously, the animation is stunning. Donkey and Puss in Boots were part of the story, but they didn't feel like they had much purpose in this film. I wouldn't say this one is better than Shrek 2 at all, but I wouldn't say this was a bad film. I didn't have a problem with Arthur being the king in the end. I just didn't think Shrek being king fit his character, so I'm glad they decided not to go that route. The villain was pretty good. It made sense that Charming would want revenge on Shrek. Even at the end of Shrek 2, I was wondering what Charming was thinking about since he essentially saw his mother be killed right in front of him. So it only makes sense that he would return in this film with much more treacherous plans. As usual, the music was really good too. I looked at some reviews after watching the film just to see what others were thinking, and they said that this film seemed to have lacked the charm that the other films had. I can definitely see that, except in the beginning it really did feel like that OG Shrek, you know? I thought the scenes in the high school were pretty cool. The characters were funny, but it was just a really quick scene, and I could see how there was just a lack of adventure that I feel the original story had that they totally lost. I didn't think this was a bad movie like some may say. I thought it was enjoyable, but yeah, I wouldn't put it up there with the first two movies. In my opinion, it's the least enjoyable Shrek film, and probably sits at tier C for me. A very high tier C though, like C+.
I have triumphed, you stupid English, with your Yorkshire puddings and your chips and fish. You thought you could defeat Le Frog?
I was happy watching this movie again. Oftentimes when I really enjoy something as a kid and rediscover it as an adult, I'm left disappointed. I didn't feel that way with Flushed Away. This was a film with enjoyable and charming characters, a very gross but still unique world to traverse in. But my only issue may be the villain. He wasn't bad, I just didn't care much for him. I will say there was something I found especially interesting about this film. So this movie was made by Aardman, a stop motion studio, and Flushed Away was their first 3D animation film. This was interesting because you could tell it was 3D. It still had this stop motion sort of style that has become very popular, you know? We give Sony a lot of credit for what they did for Western animation with Into the Spider-Verse, but with how close that style is to stop motion, I think Flushed Away might deserve a little bit more praise as well. Anyways, the story followed two leads, Roddy and Rita. Roddy, a pet rat who has his home stolen by a degenerate rat, and Rita is a selfless rat that needs a sought-after Ruby to take care of her family. They were both fun, and I enjoyed their relationship's progression as the film went on. I think I'd give Flushed Away a B. This was a pleasant rewatch for me.
Progress report.
It's an older code, Skipper. I can't make it out.
You, higher mammal. Can you read?
No.
So Madagascar is a weird story. It's not like there's a villain that gets in the way of the characters. It's not even a journey where by the end, the characters return to where they started almost like a hero's journey. I mean, it doesn't follow those steps in general. I mean, you could argue that it does in some ways, but it definitely has its own thing. It follows 4 characters, Marty, Melman, Gloria, and obviously Alex. Marty the zebra wants to go to the wild, and his best friend Alex, which is a lion, wants nothing to do with it. They have everything they could ever want. Well, Marty ain't trying to hear that. He figures out an escape plan, and when he does, the other 3 go and save him. The only problem is once they reach Madagascar, Alex succumbs to his lion nature, and their bond is tested as Alex has to overcome his hunger. Now, there's a lot to like about this movie. I love the way the characters are animated. They're always moving and it just makes it all the more funny.
Hello? Get me missing animals! And hurry! We've got a lost zebra, probably on the way to Connecticut by now, and we're gonna need...
Hello?
Hello? Wait a second. We can't call the people. What the...
This scene had me ugly laughing for no reason. I like that they weren't afraid to show Alex going crazy. I think it was good to see that because I think they needed to realize just how dangerous the wild was. I would have liked to see Marty realize that a bit more by the end, but I think he understood enough that the wild just ain't safe for him. I think my favorite moment involves the penguins. I think mostly because I grew up on the Penguins of Madagascar show on Nicktoons, so watching them again for this video always puts a smile on my face. Overall, a pretty good film that I could put at A tier, but the plot just doesn't really seem to have much of a pure focus other than showing Marty that the wild isn't as safe or as magical as he may have hoped, which funnily enough seems like zoo propaganda. I'm sure PETA hated this movie, DreamWorks. Regardless, by the end, they were still in the wild, so there you go. I'll give Madagascar a B.
What happened to your babies?
Well, Peng, my babies are all grown up. Hang on.
I would like to formally apologize to the creators behind Abominable because I thought this movie was going to be bad. I couldn't have been more wrong. This story follows a girl who is recovering emotionally after the death of her father. She then meets a Yeti who's on the run, trying to find his way back home to Mount Everest. The supporting characters are all very enjoyable. There is a scene where the character Jin reveals to the villains where they'll be headed, and I was glad to see that wasn't going to be that super predictable moment where the other characters get upset and leave him behind. Instead, he immediately changed his stance and wanted to help Everest, and found out who the actual villain was. Speaking of the actual villain, what was her problem? She nearly killed Yi, like what? She was definitely a villain to say the least. It was a lame twist, but I wasn't entirely upset by it as there was a lot more good than bad. The magic was the best part out of all of this. Every scene was like the animators telling us, yeah, we like that. I couldn't help but respect it. A beautiful movie, and the reveal of the adult Yetis was massive. Like seriously, they were huge. Ultimately, it was a great story about loss and grief and overcoming it alongside those you love. Great movie. I think it's A tier. You tell me what you think, but I can't put it over Puss in Boots. Moving on.
I thought you were going to teach us how to fly.
That's what I'm doing.
Isn't there usually some flapping involved?
Hey, do I tell you how to lay eggs?
So I remember back in school whenever this movie played, me and all my classmates would use that opportunity to do, well, nothing. We just wouldn't pay attention to it. So when I was prepping for this video, this was the first movie I watched because I thought it would be one of the weaker DreamWorks movies. And again, I'm sorry to the people behind this because I couldn't have been more wrong. I thoroughly enjoyed Chicken Run. It was a beautiful stop motion film about a female chicken who would do anything to find a way for her and her fellow chickens to escape the farm. I thought Ginger was a great lead, great voice acting, and a believable leader to all the other chickens on the farm. I think my issue with the film mostly came from Rocky. Rocky is the supporting character. He's basically supposed to be the guy that inspires the others to escape by flight until they discover his lies. But, I mean, let's be real. People lie all the time, but the fact that he still lied after Ginger saved him is kinda crazy, so yeah, I wasn't a fan of him. The beginning of the film caught me off guard. It's DreamWorks, so I wasn't expecting it to be entirely cookie cutter, but the visual of one of the chickens being killed was actually sad. Not make me a vegan kind of sad, but sad nonetheless. The only scene that felt sort of rushed to me was when Rocky found his way into that chicken pie making machine to try and save Ginger. I thought at that moment, it would have been the moment that the other chickens learned the truth, but they kind of skipped over that part and rushed through it. Not a big issue, but I thought it could have been handled differently. Again, on the stop motion, it was so beautiful. DreamWorks has a style that is so distinct. They did a really good job conveying the characters' emotions. Some animations in their faces kind of looked real. The scene where they try to escape the pie machine was really intense. Like, I knew they would make it out, but I was still getting that holy shit, get out of there type of feeling. I was really happy seeing Fowler get his moment, even if it was only a short moment, but I think what really made me happy was seeing Ginger come up with the plan, and her be the hero in the end rather than Rocky. The villain was pretty good too, and seeing her get doused in eggs as the rats gave up their precious eggs was really satisfying to see just before seeing her die? I mean, I think so. Regardless, a great film that I could seriously put in S tier, but nah, I'll put it in A. Yep, a very high A.
There's a stack of freshly made waffles in the middle of the forest. Don't you find that a wee bit suspicious?
Let me set the scene. It's 2010, I'm about 9 years old, and my auntie is taking me and my cousins to go see Shrek the Musical, and after that to see Shrek Forever After. We were hyped. I was 3 years old when Shrek 2 came out, meaning I saw that movie around the same time that I saw Forever After. Needless to say, I was Shrek'd out that year. But after that day, Shrek Forever After was solidified as one of the greatest animated movies for me. What? Yeah, so obviously it's a great movie when you're a kid, but rewatching it now, I'm not feeling it. So what is Shrek Forever After? Well, we again follow Shrek as he leaves his family to spend one day as a feared ogre again, as he wished for Shrek to have never been born, or something. The problem he has is that he trusted Rumpelstiltskin. Now, I didn't grow up on that story, but you're telling me everybody knew not to trust Rumpelstiltskin but Shrek? Okay, well he did just that. and obviously this was all part of Rumpelstiltskin's plan, and now Shrek needed to find Fiona, who no longer remembers him, to have true love's kiss that would break the contract with Rumpelstiltskin. Donkey and Puss in Boots return, but they also forget who Shrek was. But guys, these are some of my least favorite types of stories, so maybe I'm biased, man, but it's almost unfair that I rank it. Like, I will, but still, I can't stand stories where characters lose memories, or they swap bodies, or they lose their powers. Luckily, that didn't happen here, but the other stuff did. Like, it's not a bad movie. Rumpelstiltskin was still a pretty good villain, and it was great to finally see other ogres. The dynamic between Shrek and Fiona is always great to see. Although I was scared because I thought we were going to get a love triangle with that one dude. But luckily that didn't happen. Donkey and Puss were in this. Puss retires in this movie and Donkey gave us this meme, so I guess they did do something this time around. Nah, I'm kidding. They played bigger roles compared to the third movies. I did enjoy a lot about this movie. It was just like, again, the I'm an ogre thing. Every movie. At the end of every movie you'd think he's past it, but nope. I was glad he learned what he was losing when he bluntly says,
"My life was perfect, and I'm never gonna get it back."
Well, if your life was so perfect, then why'd you sign it all the way to Rumpelstiltskin in the first place?
Because I didn't know what I had until it was gone, all right? Didn't know what I had.
Like, it was definitely a tell not show kind of thing, but not entirely bad. The ending was good, but I always wonder when it comes to these parallel universes / realities, do they really want their reality wiped from existence? Like, maybe I was just confused and that version of them doesn't actually disappear forever. Regardless, I always think about that type of stuff. Like when Shrek and Fiona fell in love again and kissed. I'm just watching everybody scream as they just evaporate and I'm like, is this a good thing? I'm just overthinking it, ignore me. The movie was fine, a step up from the third movie, but a long way from being as good as Shrek 2. Gotta give this movie B tier, a very low B tier.
You may be the scariest bandit in Hajin province, but you're a lousy tipper.
Really? So, how'd you get out of there alive?
I mean, I didn't actually say that, but I thought it in my mind.
So we're gonna finish this one off with one of my favorite animated movie franchises. Kung Fu Panda is that movie that gives you hope. It tells you no matter what others may perceive as a setback about you in your life, you can use it to do things just as good, if not better. Po, voiced by Jack Black, who has to be the most excellent casting for a character ever, is the main character. And although he never dreamed of being the Dragon Warrior, he accepted the challenge when everyone around him looked down on him, and faced his biggest test when Tai Lung, the supposed real Dragon Warrior, was on the hunt to take the Dragon Scroll from Po. There's so much to love about the technical side of Kung Fu Panda. I love the 2D elements in the intro. I don't think DreamWorks gets enough love for their stylistic choices in these films. The martial arts were super creative, and I could definitely see a panda doing Kung Fu in that unique style. Just an awesome way to tell a film starring animals. It's not as complex as a Zootopia per se, but the world feels theirs and I enjoy it dearly. Po isn't the only unique fighter, but the Furious Five themselves have their own personal martial arts techniques specifically geared to their species, and that was cool. I loved how from the very beginning, they showed just how impatient Sifu was, but not just him. The Furious Five are also frustrated. They trained their entire lives to be the Dragon Warrior, and ultimately lost it to someone who never even trained to be a warrior. Tigress was mean, but you could understand her frustration with Po given that she was more than likely going to be chosen to be the Dragon Warrior. Besides, I have a soft spot for tigers since they're my favorite animals. Po's side story with his father was touching. I know it must have been difficult for Po to deny what his father wanted for him, but it was necessary for Po to do what he loved. Everything about Tai Lung was incredible. His escape was a masterpiece, and this scene here, that scene has inspired me in more ways than you know. I loved the ending when the Dragon Scroll was just a reflection. I loved how crazy it drove everyone, especially when Sifu judged Po so harshly in the beginning. It just made the ending that much more sweet. Ultimately, Kung Fu Panda is an S-tier movie for me. I've loved it from beginning to end and truly enjoyed experiencing it again for this video. Okay, so that's part 1, ladies and gentlemen. Look, you may not have agreed with everything and that's okay. But don't be mad at me, this is all opinionated. But even though I'm not done, it's crazy to remember just how much DreamWorks has had an impact on me since I was a kid. And I'm sure for you as well. In my last video I spoke on Pixar, but this video made me realize that a lot of that magic and the good parts of my upbringing was DreamWorks. Although not every movie is perfect, more often than not there was something that resonated with me. And that's why I can never definitively say these movies are bad. Except Shark Tale. I just can't deal with Shark Tale. Anyways, part 2 will be out as soon as I can get it done. I really hope you enjoyed the artwork. I might make that a tradition with these tier list videos, then incorporate my art in different ways in other videos. I'll think about that later. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and share. You're not going to want to miss part 2.